Dadhood. Modern Dadhood Podcast.
Well, how about that?
Well, look at this.
Look at what we did, man.
Spontaneously, we were going to record later, and you texted me and said, how about now? And here we are.
And it worked. It just worked.
I don't want to say that this is a Christmas miracle, but it might be a Christmas miracle that we were able to get this to just happen.
Do I hear hooves clicking on the rooftops?
Well, here's the deal. This is our holiday episode of Modern Dadhood, and I think you and I got so excited about the reflecting on the conversation with our guest.
Yeah.
We really didn't plan a lot of holiday stuff.
No, we didn't. We didn't talk about it at all. If we're being honest. Are we being honest?
Do you think there's anything we can spontaneously inject?
I mean, the night has been spontaneous thus far, or at least the last 10 minutes of it have been. Okay, spontaneous.
Well, what if you spontaneously introduced the podcast and yourself?
I can do that. Well, this, friends, is Modern Dadhood, which is an ongoing conversation about the joys, challenges, and general insanity of being a dad in this moment. And my name is Mark Checkett. I'm a dad to twin boy, almost 8-year-olds, two little boys who are quite excited about Christmas. Long Christmas lists, a lot of stuff, some silly things on there. Maybe we can get into that a little bit. But what about you, my good man?
My name's Adam Flaherty, and I'm a dad to two young women who are almost 12 and almost 9, and almost taller than me.
Damn.
And definitely either on the cusp of or may have surpassed smarter than me.
Oh, yeah, smarter.
Oh, no, not physically stronger, but definitely potentially smarter.
Yeah. Kids are smart in a different way these days than like you think back to when you were 9, right? Like it's not the same.
No.
Their brains are growing and expanding in a different way than ours were, I think, back in the day.
Yeah, I was smart about like going out into the woods and with my buddies and like climbing trees and peeing off the top of the trees.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like I was smart about getting lost in my own neighborhood and forgetting like whose front lawn I laid my bike in, you know?
Whose lawn you ghost rode your bike into, so you like hopped off and let the bike keep going to see how far it would go until it crashed?
Let the bike go. Yeah, and hopefully it doesn't hit a car. Not that I thought that far ahead.
There was a period of time where growing up, my mom had got me like, she just snagged like an extra bike at a yard sale. And so I had my normal bike, that I had, done some like cool modifications to and stuff.
Pegs?
To like,
Pegs?
well, I don't think I had pegs, but like I probably upgraded like the shocks and just the stuff that you do, put stickers on it. But then I had my like junk bike. And that's the one that I would like ride it to the top of a hill and then just like let it go by itself down the hill.
What an amazing thing.
It was this gross brown color. It was the perfect bike to just dump on.
Is it a Huffy?
I don't even remember. I don't even know that the brand still exists. Maybe the brand didn't ever exist.
It was just one of those non-brand.
Yeah.
If it had a VIN number, it would have been filed off.
Yeah, exactly. If kids' bikes had VIN numbers. Well, Christmas. I mean, we mentioned in the last episode, but this is another one of those years where after Thanksgiving, it's like just the way that the dates fall, like a very short stretch to Christmas. And
yeah, it's a lot. And as much as we talked about my wife and I getting our asses in gear earlier, it just does. I don't think it's supposed to happen. I think part of being a parent of this age child is that it's a chaotic thing, and it becomes a last minute thing. There's always going to be a last minute component to it. Yeah,
I feel like we should let listeners know that especially if they're new to the podcast, that moderndadhood.com is kind of the hub, where that will link them to all of our social media, to our YouTube, to our archive of episodes where they can search by theme if there's anything particular fatherhood related that they want to learn about or hear about. They can
like
search
loneliness.
by guest name. I'm sorry?
Like loneliness?
If they wanted to search for an episode about loneliness, certainly that will populate. If they maybe heard that several years back, Sesame Street's Emilio Delgado was a guest on the podcast, they could search his name and find that episode.
Rest in peace.
If you're new to the show, we welcome you. We hope you like what you hear. Today's episode.
Oh, yes.
This is a good one because the guest is someone we've been trying to get on, playing, I guess, email tag with for a while.
His name is Dr. Alvin Thomas. And I think it's interesting because, so my wife is wonderful. And every time she sort of hears an interview or reads an article or something that she feels like, oh, this would be a great guest for Modern Dadhood, she always lets me know. And she texted me one day. I was up here in my office. She was down in her office. And she was listening to the 1A. Did you ever listen to the 1A
No.
on NPR? It's a great show. It's a great show.
I love NPR, but I actually don't know if I even have heard of the 1A.
Great show. Check it out. She actually writes in a lot, and she's had her questions read on the air. That's
cool.
Which is good. Yeah. So she's a big fan. So she is listening to an episode that actually had former guest of ours, the one and only Dr. Vivek Murthy, who is the 2-time serving U.S. Surgeon General. Mm-hmm. We were super fortunate to have him. Another long email back and forth that you conducted with his people. She was listening to an episode that had him, and Dr. Alvin Thomas was on that episode, and she pinged me. She said, "Oh, you got to check out this guy. He's awesome.
He knows his stuff."
And so I listened to him for a minute. I text you and I'm like, dude, Jamie told me about this guy. And you were like, I've already been emailing that guy.
I've been messaging with him. He said he'd be interested in doing it. We just haven't connected to make it happen yet.
Yeah. But we often say on this show that Adam and me, we're not experts, like we're a couple of dinks who are just trying to be, present dads. We're trying to get smarter. We're trying to get better at parenting. We sometimes bring people on who have, more experience, maybe more in the expert realm, so that we ourselves selfishly can learn a little bit. But I think I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that this is like one of the most experts that we've had on this show, like probably far and away.
It was a really great chat. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, another goal or kind of part of the mission of the podcast is to try to include as many voices as we can whose fatherhood experiences are different from our own. Mm-hmm. And we learned that our guest actually isn't a biological father, but he's spent so many years studying fatherhood and Black fatherhood specifically, and just is a wealth of knowledge on that subject. And we learned so much. And I think our listeners are going to just get so much from this conversation too.
I would also just pre-encourage, like before you even listen, look this guy up and check out his content at dralvinthomas.com. But he's also on, he's on YouTube and his podcast. Did we confirm that his podcast is on like the platforms?
Yeah, it's called the Black Fathers Pulse podcast. It's on all the major platforms. You can find it, and we'll certainly link to it in the episode notes.
Yeah, this guy's been working with kids and parents and families and communities and other educators and other experts in a variety of fields, from psychology to therapy, and the list kind of just goes on and on. So I just know that like you and I, Adam, did during our chat with him, our listeners are going to get so much info out of our discussion with him, for sure.
Well, I see no reason to not just go ahead and roll that interview right now.
Play it back, man.
Hey, Merry Christmas to you, Mark.
Oh, my God. Merry Christmas to you. I'm so into Christmas, man.
All right, here's Dr. Alvin Thomas. Dr. Alvin Thomas is an associate professor of human development and family studies at the University of Wisconsin-Madison's School of Human Ecology. He is the host of the award-winning Black Fathers Pulse podcast. Dr. Thomas, thank you so much for joining us. We're delighted to have you on Modern Dadhood.
Thank you so much for having me.
We've been trying to do this for a while, and
It's been a while.
for months we've been communicating about this, and I feel like I've dropped the ball on following up and getting it scheduled, but so glad to have this time with you.
Yeah, life has been happening.
It certainly has.
Life has a tendency to not stop happening, I think.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Well, Dr. Thomas, it's very good to meet you. I'm thrilled that we were able to make it work and that Adam stopped dropping the ball. But Adam and I were talking a little earlier, and I was kind of joking that I feel like we could probably spend 30 minutes straight just walking through your accolades, your accomplishments, listing out your body of work. But we do always kind of like to try to start things on a personal level, just trying to understand a little bit about our guests. So are we correct in thinking that you have one son? Is that right?
Let me step back. Let's define son. Are you talking biological, social? Biologically, I have no children.
Okay.
Socially, I have too many to count. I have young men who I have mentored who are now fathers themselves, and I'm providing support and mentorship as they are going through their fatherhood experiences. I have older guys who are my age who are now going through their fatherhood experiences, and we're finding time to chat about what that experience looks like for them in that journey of manhood, that journey of humanity. And I have men who have been fathers for a long time, men who are now grandfathers, who I'm providing support and mentorship for. And again, when I say mentorship, I think we often think of it in this very structured, stoic way, and I'm thinking of just a friendship,
Sure.
a person who you care about, a person who you really want to see thrive, a family who you really want to see thrive, and a family that you're connected to in one way or another. And you're providing support with your life and with your experiences and with your expertise, and they're providing support in their own ways as well. So from that perspective, I have a number of people who I would consider sons. I do some work in Trinidad and Tobago, and we have a youth group in Trinidad and Tobago. So there are kids in Trinidad who would consider me uncle. There are kids in Grenada, in St. Kitts, across the Caribbean, who would consider me uncle. And of course, they're my own biological nieces and nephews who would, of course, consider me uncle back in St. Lucia. And then there are a ton of kids who I've mentored in the US who would maybe not consider me uncle, but would consider me mentor or support in one way or another. So while I don't currently have any biological children, there's a little bit of a comma there.
Yeah.
I do have many people who I think of like children.
Yeah, and it sounds like that relationship goes both ways. It reminds me actually a lot, Mark, about when you and I, maybe around this time last year, you know what I'm going to say.
You're going to say Francois?
Yeah. Do you know Dr. Francois Clemens, Dr. Thomas?
What university?
So he was an actor. He is retired now, but was working in Vermont. But he played a character named Dr. Clemens Officer Clemens on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood for decades.
No, I do not. No.
Yeah, well, he's a fascinating figure, and like you, is a mentor to so many people who he considers his cosmic children.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That was the tip. As Dr. Thomas was talking, I was trying to look up what it was that Francois used, the term, and he said cosmic children.
Yeah.
But had a lot of really similar things to say. That's funny, Adam. Yeah, my brain kind of went right there. Well, and it's such an interesting thing too to dissect the word father.
Yeah.
In and of itself. I mean, we do that a little bit, here and there, just naturally on the show. But, when you think about having a person in your life that's just there for you, in a time of need or not, just being there for you. I mean, isn't that a little bit about what it means to be a parent, or to be a father? So I feel like we can take this conversation into so many different directions. I was reading through your bio, and there's something in there that kind of stuck out to me a little bit. I wondered if it was a place that we could have a little discussion on.
Sure.
It mentions, I'm just going to read it so that I don't screw it up, that your research primarily revolves around the advancement of anti-racism efforts that positively impact Black children, Black fathers and their families and communities. And I kind of wondered if we could start almost like at a level set kind of place. Can you sort of give a high level, I suppose, definition of what anti-racism means? And then if we can maybe just hear you talk a little bit about what you think it looks like to work towards being an anti-racist in everyday life. And I think from there we can kind of maybe dissect it even further as we go.
So as you were reading that, thank you very much. As you were reading that, I was trying to think of where would he have seen this? I can't remember when I wrote this.
I believe it's dralvinthomas.com.
Oh, that's where that is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's amazing how over the lifespan of your work, over lifespan, how people change, but also how your work changes and the tenor and pitch of your work changes. And so I think at one point in time, I would have described myself as being a person who's focused on internalizing and externalizing disorders in disadvantaged children from disadvantaged neighborhoods. And then that switched to something different, and now talking a little bit about anti-racist, and then kind of switched that again recently to thinking about creating or helping to create and support resilient family ecosystems. And I think that's kind of where I feel I sit a little bit more now.
Yeah.
And I say that to say that the language has changed and continues to change so much that what is considered anti-racist can sometimes differ from person to person. And I don't know what other people think of as anti-racist, and they may well be a very stick a pin in it kind of definition for what anti-racist is. But when I think of anti-racist, especially from the point of view of Black families and the development of Black children, I think of spaces that not just only allow Black children to exist, but that also allows them to be themselves, to just freely be Black children, or to just freely be children. Without necessarily having these additional titles, urban, black, low income, high income, whatever. Just allow them to be children, allow people to be people, and to exist in the full humanity that is both their phenotype as well as their cultural expression, whatever that happens to look like. But also because of the socio and socio-political, socio-historical history of the U.S., I think anti-racist, at least the way I think about it and apply it to my work, also means a society or a space, whether that be an entire community, a school, a group, a club, or a country. Anti-racist also means that individuals and organizations are actively involved, critically focused on undermining racism, discrimination, prejudice, especially that which is based upon skin color or phenotype. And so when I think of anti-racist work regarding Black kids and families, I'm thinking of what spaces can we exist in, what spaces have been historically and currently dangerous to exist in, and what resources, what efforts are being engaged both at not both, but at the individual, the family, and very importantly, at the structural and societal levels to undermine some of these pernicious stereotypes with which we have lived for centuries, it feels like.
Yeah. God, there's so much there that I feel like I kind of want to dive into. But you said something really interesting a couple seconds ago, where you sort of went back and you said Black children, but then you went back and said children, and that's to me. So I'm white. I have two young. I have two.
You might be the whitest.
I don't know if you can tell. Yeah, I think it's like unabashedly white. And I have two small children. I have twins that are going to be 8 years old in February. I live in pretty rural, like New Hampshire, which is, a predominantly a white state, and just culturally not the most diverse place in the whole world. And, I kind of grapple a little bit with this place of, I want my kids to grow up and be part of this, just a blanket statement, kind of like part of the solution, not part of the problem. Right. And yet at the same time, they're so young. I think, they're so young, and it's like, I struggle sometimes with how do we start? How do we start to talk about some of these things, some of these systemic things, these realities that are sometimes really not pretty about this country and the world in which we live, without sort of like, I guess maybe damaging their outlook, but it is the reality, and this is the world in which we live, and it is the world in which that they're going to grow up, and at a certain point, be the recipients of systemic biases that are in place purely because of their skin color. And there's no real question in there, other than I found it interesting that you said that, and it's a place where I grapple all the time, because I would want, even though it's really not reality, for kids to just be kids for as long as possible.
Yeah, and I'd like to respond to it. And I think kids can be kids for as long as we can allow them to be kids. And we understand that kids are eventually going to lose their innocence, because that's just how the world works. They get old enough, they start to explore new environments, they recognize for themselves, or we eventually cue them to it, that danger does exist in this world. We see it with, if you look at David Attenborough's multiple displays of animals in the wild. You see the little turtle swimming out, and you're like, oh, that's so beautiful, that's so cute. And then he gets gobbled by a shark.
Yep.
Like, and that's the real world. Do you tell that turtle, do not venture out to stay here the entire time? No, there's the risk that you're going to encounter ugliness, but that ugliness should be the definer of your world, is where I think the challenge exists. At the beginning, a little bit earlier, we joked that you're obviously white, and I was thinking to myself, are you obviously white? You're not obviously white. You're obviously phenotypically white. So we're different with regard to what we look like. You have the features that people call white, that people have agreed is white, whatever white means.
Right.
And you don't have to appropriate culture that has been assigned to that. And often that culture is from the point of view of white supremacy.
Yeah.
That's one of the cultures that's associated with white. There are many other cultures. Now, an individual could be phenotypically white and ascribing to views and values that are supremacist based on their phenotype. That is problematic.
Yeah.
For them, for their children, for me, for my future children, and all the people that we love. That's problematic. An individual could be phenotypically white or phenotypically black, and black people can also adopt white supremacist values as well, and mouth them and live them. And so I think to your question about your young child, you would teach your child mathematics. In fact, you hope that by 1 year old, your child is counting to 5. and that by 3, 4, 5 years old, they're counting beyond 5 and can add numbers and subtract and perform these kinds of mental gymnastics that we appreciate. And yet, those are things, that's knowledge that your child did not have. But you recognize that knowledge is something that your child is going to need to navigate this world. In much the same way, being nice, as Mr. Rogers puts it, being a good neighbor, those are values that your child is going to need as well to correctly navigate this world and to do it in a way that allows other people to exist and to be loved and to love and to feel supported and all that wonderfulness. And so when do you start that? Do you wait until 10? When does your child need to know that? Your child needs to know that as soon as possible.
Right.
I had a guest once on a podcast who said that our responsibility is to guide our children through all of their firsts and to experience it, to re-experience it as they're experiencing it and lead them through it, guide them through it. Our responsibility is also to point them to the truth that there is danger in this world, that there is hate, that there are all of these negatives in this world. And while we do that, provide them with the tools to handle it, to navigate those things, but to also not take these things into themselves and adopt those values as their own. Those are very critical roles that we're playing. The flip part of that is that we also have to walk this really tight rope where we allow our children to see the dark side, in developmentally appropriate pipette type drops if you need to. Allow them to see that, yes, there is hate, there are all these bad things going on in the world, but there is still beauty in the world. There is still love. There is still people living together. There's loyalty. There's all this wonderfulness that's still existing in the world. And I think often we almost pretend that we're unaware that life is about duality. Birth cannot exist without death.
Yeah.
Darkness cannot exist without light. And in much the same way, if we were trying to tell our children how beautiful this world is, we have to let them know that there's some darkness in here as well. And you decide what your role is in relation to that darkness. You can appropriate that darkness, or you can fight that darkness and bring light.
I think that's a wonderful point. And we can teach them about empathy, and we can teach them about positivity and equality and acceptance and love. But, I also love this idea of anti-racism. And to Mark's point, I have 2 young daughters, and trying to determine what are the appropriate ages to start having those conversations about the darker and less positive things, but are the reality of the history of the world and the history of our country. And in order to educate them on that stuff so that I can have a more productive conversation about here's how you can contribute to changing the future.
Yeah. I mean, I hear kids, sometimes I hear kids talk about dinosaurs and which dinosaurs eat which ones and how the dinosaurs disappeared. And they can talk really intelligently about the cataclysm that took out the dinosaurs and how sad that was. They talk really intelligently about all of the different classifications of dinosaurs and which ones killed which ones. And I think to myself, we are underestimating our kids if we assume that they cannot handle that. Again, I'm not saying you tell a 5-year-old, oh, just so you know, a certain group of people were kept asleep. Like there are ways to have these conversations that lead up eventually to having more naked conversations. So you could talk about the empathy. You could talk about how does it feel to know that you were not picked to play? Yeah. How do you think other people might have felt as well? That creates the foundation for later having the conversations about these deeper historical challenges that our country has had to deal with and is still dealing with today. But I think we have to be careful and I think often it's not that our kids can't handle the conversation. I think it's often that we can't handle the conversation.
Yeah.
We're afraid to have the conversation.
Yeah.
Because we're afraid that we will say the wrong thing, or we're afraid that if we say it, it will cause them to align to one side or another, or we're afraid that if we say it, then all of the gory history spills out.
We could be afraid to say it, and I'm not necessarily saying this from personal experience. We could be afraid to talk about it because we're afraid of exposing biases in our own lives.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, you said something a little bit ago, Dr. Thomas, about the innocence of children. And I think for me in particular, that is a big part of it. You know, I want desperately to educate my kids and for them to be educated. And for me to, you know, as you sort of put it, guide through some of the firsts, and then therefore, as they get older, be sort of seen as a bit of a trustworthy source and maybe a moral barometer in some cases. Not that I'm perfect. Life is a work in progress. Like I'm a work in progress. And so just to be clear, but it's that, that squashing of, certain parts of the innocence that a child naturally has. Because that is such a beautiful thing to behold. When you were talking about the first and then you reliving some of the firsts, what a wonderful thing to have a front row seat when you're around a child to look at a problem or anything and see it again for maybe the first time. It's such a beautiful space to be in. Yeah.
You had mentioned your podcast early on. Would love to hear a bit about that. So how it started, and it started as something a little different, right? It started as the Black Fatherhood podcast and has morphed into this new version of it. Can you sort of speak to why you chose to start that podcast, what your goals have kind of been with it, and how it's shifted?
So when I was in grad school, I remember working with my now great friend, Cleopatra Caldwell. She was my graduate student mentor, and she led me through the PhD. She recently retired. She had this really great program called the Fathers and Sons program in Flint, Michigan. And the idea was reconnecting non-resident Black fathers in Flint, Michigan with their sons, 8 to 12 years old, and just doing a ton of really great work. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be great if every city in the US could have a Fathers and Sons program, and that there would be multiple chapters of the Fathers and Sons program across the country? The great work and benefit that we were seeing in the few hundred kids and fathers that we were dealing with in Flint, what would that look like if we could multiply that across the country? And of course, that was stymied because of the way academia is set up. You have these very strict timelines. Things have to follow a particular schedule. And so while you might be seeing really great output, it has to go through multiple trials and iterations and peer review and all that wonderful stuff to get to the point where now it feels like it's an efficacious intervention, and now we can roll it out and maybe test it for the first time. That could take like 15, 20, 30 years before it's actually out. And by the time it's out, the kind of families that you were dealing with have changed. We now have AI chomping at our heels. That's going to change what families look like, what child interaction with parents and with the world looks like. And an intervention like the Fathers and Sons program or any other intervention, unless they can pivot really quickly to push this new technological milieu into the intervention, is going to lose out. It's not going to be as efficacious as it could be. And so I thought, how could we take this information that we're jam-packing in these academic journals and translate it to bite-sized pieces in layman's language that can be easily digestible by any person, but even more importantly, by the people who are doing the work in the communities. So people are trying to figure out, what can I do with a group of fathers to provide support? Let me go listen to the Black Fathers Pulse podcast and see what they're suggesting is evidence-based, is supported by some of the research on this very specific population or related population. And so sometime during the pandemic, I put together what I thought was a really good idea. And just around, I think, 2020, 2021, it was on a small whiteboard. And I put the whiteboard, I think, in my basement, and I forgot it there. And it just was out of my mind. And a small grant popped up, and I was able to revisit that idea and start the Black Fatherhood podcast with the intention of pulling all of these researchers from across the country who are doing this work and translating the work in conversation and storytelling to a lay audience. As I was doing that, a number of the interviews started turning not just from the point of repurposing the research, it started becoming stories. So researchers were telling their personal stories, and other guests were telling their personal stories, either of being fathered or of not having a father or of fathering themselves. And the power of storytelling, we all know, well, I shouldn't say we all, I shouldn't assume that. Most people know that we all know that there's a certain power in being able to say what you want to say and say what you've experienced, tell it to a person in a convincing, in a very evocative way. And the audience seemed to respond to that. The organizations that give awards out, these national awards, also seem to respond to that. And so I kind of leaned into that and said, let's tell more of these stories. And so we were able to grab a number of really exciting guests who could bring different facets, different angles on the fatherhood experience to the Black Fathers Pulse. So now we're bringing in children as well to tell their experiences of how fatherhood has affected them positively, not so positively, and what they're thinking of going forward as they think of how they're developing themselves.
I just love that idea, and I love the format, and I listened to, honestly, I just let it go, and I was just listening to one to the next, and I would just encourage our listeners, obviously check out the podcast, but check out the YouTube channel. And, a great way in, I think, to Dr. Thomas's content and research and the stories that he's talking about is even just through that Fatherhood Depot playlist, because that stuff is so, I found the topics very insightful, but it's just bite-sized, and as you put it, it's these sort of like things that any lay person can just understand, whether you're a father or not, if you're just a human being, is kind of how I was thinking about it. Like, these are great lessons and anecdotes.
Dr. Thomas, I did want to ask you, so you run these mentorship programs on a variety of topics, like mental health, obviously fatherhood, community development. What can you tell us about these programs and the types of people or organizations who are bringing you in to speak and educate on these topics? I
think probably the most interesting one that I ever had was the Federal Reserve Bank of New York City. I was like, wait, I don't do anything regarding financing. Like, why would they be? But they had a very specific conversation that they wanted to have with a very specific group of people. And it ended up being a really, really great experience. But I say that to say essentially that almost anybody, if you have human beings in your organization, whether those human beings are men, fathers, women, children, whatever, there is space for conversations about fathers and about fatherhood, because fatherhood is universal. Fatherhood is human. It is critical. It is necessary. It is life-changing. It is time travel. It is all of these wonderful things. It's generation saving. It's salubrious. It's healthy. It's all of these wonderful things. And I think the organizations that have brought me in, sometimes have brought me in to speak on a very specific topic. And I know that topic, if we go down the rabbit hole a few steps, is connected to fathers. And so when I'm talking, I may not necessarily say fathers, but I'm connecting it back to those same threads that is connected to fatherhood. And so far, the feedback has been very positive. I've spoken at specific conferences like child conferences or child welfare conferences and workshops. I've spoken with DHS organizations. Most recently, myself and a colleague at the university have connected, and we've put together this Fathers in Focus conference at Madison, Wisconsin, where we bring together fathers, and like the name says, the focus is specifically on fathers. So other people are allowed to attend the conference if they want to, but we let them know that we love having you here, but just so you know, the focus today is specifically on fathers. So whatever you're going to do or say, come prepared to provide that support, to exist in that space. We create a space in that conference where men can let down their hair, whether they're bald or have full length hair. They should feel comfortable being able to let down their hair and to just be men for that period of time, not be fathers, not be husbands, not be caretakers, not be workers, just be men and experience being around other men and hearing some of your challenges echoed in the stories of some of the other men who are around you. That normalization of the experience is very cathartic. It forces you to realize that, one, you're not alone, and two, that the challenge that you're going through is potentially a universal challenge inherent to the roles that you're currently existing in. And then three, providing support, providing emotional support, and sometimes tangible and instrumental support around some of those challenges that men are dealing with. But a lot of the work I see myself continuing to do is connecting to organizations and having the conversations, doing the workshops, doing the support for men and for fathers and for families.
I mean, what a powerful thing to sort of, I think for men in particular, to be in a space where you're witnessing other men be open, be vulnerable. I mean, it's, this is the thing that we talk about a lot on this podcast is, we have the experiences that our fathers or the generation before us have kind of like laid out a little bit for us. And, if you go back maybe a couple generations, it's, the man is this very stereotypical, there's a stoicism element and maybe the wrong version of stoicism and it's quiet and don't talk about your feelings and don't say I love you. And I think it's gone, we've come a long way, I suppose, as far as that's concerned. I mean, do you feel like in your travels and in your research and in your experiences, like, do you see that like on the whole, that maybe things are, I don't know how to put it, like trending positively for men being more in touch with their emotions and being vulnerable, like, or are you still sort of seeing like, no, that's a thing that we really need to continue to work hard to pull out of men?
I think it's a bit of both. So I am seeing, compared to their fathers, men, well, I should say fathers in general, but men in general today, a lot more comfortable with the fact that as a human being, they have emotions more than just anger and rage. So they're not feeling that they're restricted to just those two emotions.
Yeah.
They still feel challenged in how to express it and where to express it. And I will say this, that I understand why they feel challenged, because society is not ready for it. Society says that it's ready. So they say, oh, we want men to embrace their softer sides and we want men to embrace their vulnerability. And as soon as a man embraces his vulnerability, oh, oh, that's weird. That looks different. Like why is he so weak?
Yeah.
But you're asking, so you kind of are caught in this in this dual bind where you're asked to embrace your full self, and you're punished for embracing your full, if you do attempt to embrace your full self. And so men are trying to figure out what that means and what that's going to look like, as society is still trying to figure out what is it that we want from men. My take, though, is that I want men to be able to exist outside of the roles that they play. That men can just be human beings, first and foremost, just be men. And then men who are fathers, and men who are husbands, and men who are police officers, and men who are whatever other roles that they choose to pick up. But that they're not defined only based on on the specific roles that they play. And our institutions kind of still function like that. Yeah. We see men based on, we determine fatherhood based on presence in the family and ability to provide.
Yeah.
Which is true and necessary, but it is not the only role.
Yeah.
And if we heighten one role and ignore others, then that role becomes the definer of the individual and of the role itself. So it's challenging. I think we're still trying to figure out what that looks like and what that should look like. And men are still roiling and twisting around in the confusion that society is still in, because we keep saying we want men to move forward and be able to do all those things, and yet we still see men as not being worthy or necessary of support or help. So we will have a maternal support program, but the program that we offer to fathers is the Better Dads program, or some kind of diversionary program. It's not just a fatherhood support. And men have also kind of taken that into themselves. They've absorbed it, where, no, I don't need help.
Yeah,
I can take care of my kids, no matter, even if it means I have to go to, and I've had fathers say this, even if it means I have to go to jail, I will provide for my child. It's like, but there are other options.
Yeah.
But there's a certain pride and machismo in being able to say, I did what I needed to do, even if it killed me.
Yeah.
Without recognizing that if it kills you or is killing you, guess what it's doing, what it's doing to your child.
Yeah.
And to your family and to the generation that's coming afterwards.
Yeah.
Because the things that we leave unaddressed, the challenges that we take upon ourselves and do not resolve in our generation, we give it to our children to solve in their generation. It doesn't just disappear.
Yeah. Man.
It's heavy stuff.
It is. It really is.
It's
And I
true.
was also just kind of thinking to myself, that's actually really such a great note for us to kind of end on. But at the same time, I don't want to end there. I also want to be really cognizant of your time, Dr. Thomas. I did kind of want to get your thoughts on something if you have.
I have time.
Okay.
Today's my birthday, so I have until about 3-4 o'clock when I'm going to go out to dinner and have a nice dinner for my birthday.
Today,
happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I can't believe
Thank
you
you.
decided to spend any of it with us on the show. But wow, that's great. Thank you. Well, happy birthday.
Thank you very
to
much.
you. Yeah. As you were talking, there are a couple things came into my mind. And one of the things that I get stuck sort of ruminating on a little bit is, like, we as a species now spend so much of our time online, on the internet. And the internet is such a vast place. And though there are bright spots, you know, I'd like to think of our show maybe as a bright spot that exists on the internet, your content, you know, and yet so much of the internet and the algorithms are built in such a way to instill rage in people and it preys on that. I mean, I don't know if you like they recently released like the word of the year for, and Oxford chose rage bait. And I believe last year it was something not too dissimilar to that same vein. And I don't know. What I start to think about is you've got men who are struggling with certain emotions, especially younger men, struggling with certain emotions in a society where we're kind of in some areas trying to say, we celebrate your vulnerability and you being in touch with your emotional side and this, that, and the other. And then you go on to the internet and you're baited, and it feels as if in so many cases, the cards are kind of stacked against you out in that world. And I guess there's no real question there other than I just sort of wonder if you have thoughts on that, or what your sort of take is on that as maybe an obstacle, to contend with.
So, I mean, so it's a lot like, well, it used to be what bleeds sells, and what is most provocative sells. And that has not changed. Yeah. It's just moved online.
That's true.
And now everybody's doing it. So it used to be that the major news networks, those people who bought ink by the barrel and who bought paper by the box could peddle that kind of information and put in front of us news that slanted a particular way to kind of grab as many eyeballs as possible and raise ratings and kind of boost. So it was about the money. It's always been about the money. It's always been about greed. And I think in much the same way, now we have a lot more people. You don't need a license to do a podcast.
Right.
So I'm not advocating for. Maybe I should advocate for licensing of podcasts. But I'm not advocating for licensing of podcasting. Sure. But you have so many people out there speaking very often from uninformed perspectives. And others who, whether informed or not, are speaking, but there's no evidence to it. And then you have a mass of people who do not have training or proper understanding of how to consume media. And so if it's on my TV, if it's on my screen and in words, it must be true.
Right.
They wouldn't, whoever the amorphous they is, they wouldn't allow these people to be on my TV, on my computer screen, saying these things if they weren't true. And that guy just said, a scientist said it, so it must be true. And he said that the scientist was from Harvard. Like, you can't get better than Harvard.
Right.
So it must be true. And so you have a lot of that happening. And the challenge is that our education system is not preparing our kids to be able to consume media appropriately. So they're preparing our kids to consume, but not to consume appropriately. So our kids are not learning how to test material to see who's the funder, what's the angle, what's the history behind this. They just don't have those skills. Yeah. The flip side, though, is that kind of like, this is kind of going right back to the beginning of the podcast, our conversation about we could wring our hands and say, oh my God, there's so much craziness on the internet. There's so much rage bait. There's so much anger. There's so much divisiveness. There's so much filth on the internet, and the algorithm keeps driving you to this. But I think of the dad who is daily exposed to rage bait and all of the potential viciousness that exists and vile that might exist on the internet and in other spaces, who spends most of his day consuming that, but every so often a clip of the Fatherhood Depot or your podcast or my podcast or some other podcast that encourages and supports and provides a pinprick of light. And I think to myself, if that is still possible, then we have hope.
Yeah.
Well, I think that feels like a natural place to And thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the work that you're doing. It's so important. It's inspiring. I would encourage our listeners to go to dralvinthomas.com. We'll include a link in the episode notes, as well as to your social platforms, your YouTube channel. Encourage them to sign up for your Substack. Is there anything else that you're currently promoting, or anywhere else that we can direct our listeners?
Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. We're trying to be everywhere.
That's great.
So for exactly that reason, that you could find it anyway, and hopefully it'll find you.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
We'll go right to the episode notes where there'll be links out to all of those places. It was so great to meet you. I hope you have a wonderful birthday dinner. Mark, we've never had the opportunity to sing happy birthday to a guest before. Should we do it?
That could be...
It'll be embarrassing, but hell, we've been talking about being vulnerable.
Being vulnerable.
Should we
go ahead?
Should we allow ourselves to be vulnerable right now?
All right.
Yeah.
3,
okay, ready?
2, 1. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dr.
Alvin Thomas.
The delay's killing me.
It's killing me too.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. And that was awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's absolutely a first. Oh, my God.
I appreciate it.
Well, we look forward to staying in touch. And thanks again for all the important work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Feel free to reach out if I can ever help again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Perfect. It was a pleasure.
Great conversation, great Christmas episode. Even if we didn't pack in quite enough holiday stuff, there's something magical about this sode, man.
True. It's just in there, you know?
Let's let our listeners know that they can, again, find all of our episodes at moderndadhood.com or on any place where they can find podcasts. We're on all the social media platforms, I think, pretty much just about all. I'm sorry you're out of time to buy a Modern Dadhood t-shirt or dad hoodie in time for the holidays, but if you buy one, I might still be able to get it delivered to you by New Year's Eve.
That would be great. New Year's Eve gifts, that people don't think about them, but you can. You can think about New Year's Eve as a gift-giving time.
I agree. Thank you to Casper Baby Pants and to Spencer Albee for the music in our podcast.
Great music.
Thank you to Dr. Alvin Thomas, who I'm so delighted that we now know. It was a fruitful conversation and one that episode that I'm really proud to share with people.
Same. I think it's also going to be one of the ones that I just revisit a bunch. If that happens. There's been a few that I've revisited several times because I feel like they were rich, and the people were just the guests were just so chock full of wisdom, and I think this is going to be one of those.
Couldn't agree more. And why don't you take the final thank you of probably of the year.
The final thank you of the year. Okay, hold on. Me.
It's always all about you, man. I don't get it.
Well, I'm number one. Thank you for listening. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Christmas.
Happy New Year.
Happy holidays.
Be kind to one another.
Podcast. Just a modern.